Hello, this is David Bush, and this is my How We Got to Now report, focusing on the area of cleanliness in the country of China. I chose China as the country for my report because not only is China an ancient civilization, but they have gone from trading on the Silk Road starting around 130 BC and today being the world's second largest economy and the world's largest manufacturing powerhouse. They produce nearly 50% of the world's major industrial goods, including crude steel at 800% of the US's level and making up 50% of the global supply, cement at 60% of the world's production, coal at 50% of the world's production, vehicles with more than 25% of the global supply, and industrial patent applications at about 150% of the US level of patent applications. China is also the world's largest producer of ships, high-speed trains, robots, tunnels, bridges, highways, chemical fibers, machine tools, computers, and cell phones. But with all that they have accomplished, they certainly aren't without their problems, and cleanliness is one of the most glaring examples. I want to take a look at a couple of areas of cleanliness in China, mainly personal hygiene and the environment, and talk about where they are now and what the impacts are. I also want to talk about how they plan to address some of the issues and how they are using technological innovation to do it. Personal hygiene. Even though public bathhouses thrived for all walks of life in China into the early 20th century, those who live in rural areas don't bathe often. Some poor farmers in western China, for example, have never bathed due to lack of facilities. It is estimated that 200 to 800 million rural people bathe just once a month, causing disease due to poor hygiene. It seems that China's lack of sanitary habits extends beyond bathing. According to several sources, their public restroom system is so poor that it is not uncommon to see mothers allowing their children to defecate in public. And when there are working restrooms available, there is seldom soap and water available. Unfortunately, this is also starting to carry over to some adults as well. There are other activities that are normal in China that most Westerners are not accustomed to. While it is common knowledge that smoking is not allowed in most public places in the US, it seems the majority of Chinese people smoke and smoke anywhere and everywhere, contributing to an already enormous air quality problem. But what are they doing about it? Beginning in 2015, China has started what is being called a toilet revolution. They have built or upgraded tens of thousands of facilities at tourist sites across the country. But there are still thousands more to go in the next couple of years as authorities try to improve public sanitation and clean up the country's international reputation. Let's look now at environmental cleanliness. Affecting China in the areas of cleanliness much more than personal hygiene is the state of their environmental cleanliness. In fact, let's consider a few facts. If you breathe freely in Beijing for one day, it would be the equivalent of smoking 21 cigarettes. China's air pollution is so terrible that it travels across the Pacific and pollutes San Francisco, contributing to more than a third of the city's air pollution. Entire towns have been written off as so polluted that simply living there is a cancer risk. They call these cancer villages. More than half of China's surface water is so polluted it cannot be treated to make it drinkable. China is the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases and was responsible for 27% of global emissions in 2014. And more than a quarter of China's key rivers are unfit for human contact. Sulfur dioxide and soot produced by coal combustion fall as acid rain on approximately 30% of China's land area. Industrial boilers and furnaces consume almost half of China's coal and are the largest sources of urban air pollution. In many cities, the burning of coal for cooking and heating accounts for the rest. What are they doing about air quality? First, they're limiting coal use. China released an energy strategy that called for capping coal consumption by 2020, and it's been shutting down existing coal mines as well as removing the coal boilers from many homes and businesses that are used for winter heating. This left some homeowners, businesses, and even students without heat for the winter. They're also cleaning up cars and trucks. As mentioned earlier, China is one of the largest car markets in the world, or in fact, they are the largest car market in the world. Cutting pollution for automobiles, like cutting pollution for coal plants, is essential not just reduce CO2 emissions, but to clearing the air in the cities. The government estimates that roughly 1/3 of Beijing's epic smog is from automobiles. China is pulling old, inefficient cars off the road, providing incentives for buying hybrids and electric cars, and enforcing stricter fuel efficiency standards for new cars. They're also making buildings more energy efficient and building their renewable capacity. China knows it needs alternative sources of energy to replace coal, so the government is investing heavily in developing wind and solar energy. They're also building nuclear reactors, which is one of the lowest carbon forms of electricity out there. China has announced it will build at least 60 new nuclear power plants within a decade. They're also building high-speed rail systems to limit transportation emissions. China is using both technology and regulation to combat water pollution. China's Water Pollution Prevention and Control Action Plan aims to enforce stricter standards, increase water monitoring efforts, strengthen the enforcement of environmental laws, punish polluters, and especially target heavily polluting industries. These initiatives suggest that the Chinese government is serious about tackling water pollution. China is also experimenting with innovative urban design to solve flooding and water shortages. They're called sponge cities. Porous concrete, man-made wetlands, and green spaces capture and reuse water that previously would have vanished down the drain. It's obvious that China has a long way to go in the area of cleanliness. Just the social welfare impact of the 1.1 million deaths in 2015 that were attributed to air pollution alone is staggering. And when a country the size of China has the environmental problems with water and air that they have, it affects the rest of the planet. There does, however, appear to still be hope. It seems that the attitudes of the people and the government are beginning to change. They now see the consequences of environmental abuse and are starting to value what has been abused for so long. If the government continues to aggressively use regulation to force industry to be responsible and use both regulation and technical innovation to improve the air and water quality, life will improve for China. I believe with innovations such as the sponge cities and renewable energy, while addressing the sanitation issues as they are starting to with the toilet revolution, they are moving in the right direction. If they continue on this course, they may even be surprised to find the tourism industry keeping pace with their industrial prowess. These next two slides are the references I used in creating this report. That concludes my report on the impact of cleanliness in China. Thank you for watching.